to have been progress this Friday at international talks over Iran's nuclear program. Iran and negotiators from the European Union seem to have resolved some of their differences, making headway on how to implement the landmark nuclear deal reached at the end of last year in Geneva. However, the US State Department says that an implementation deal hasn't been finalised yet and so won't immediately go into effect with the easing up of sanctions. Let's get more on this now with political analyst Milad Jokar, a specialist on Iran and the Middle East. Thanks very much for being with us on France 24. How do you read between the lines here the different announcements from Tehran and from the United States? Do you think we've seen significant progress towards implementing this nuclear deal?
Yes. Well, first of all, diplomacy is a long and difficult process. So what we have seen today is indeed positive. However, we have to be careful because the results of today's negotiations have to be submitted to the different foreign ministers, and they will have to ratify what has been agreed today. And if it is ratified, however, then we could soon see the implementation of the first step of this deal. That is to say, on the one hand, Iran puts limitation on its nuclear program, and on the other hand, the gradual lifting of sanctions, minor sanctions, but this will bring trust, and with that trust, both sides will be able to go to step 2 of this long process in maybe 6 months now, to negotiate on the final terms of this agreement and the final lifting of sanctions, and Iran would have to agree to maximum means of verification and full transparency that will guarantee that Iran is not moving toward a military nuclear program. So now we have to wait for the foreign minister's decisions for the ratification.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, in talking about the implementation, there have been some differences in terms of implementing the Geneva deal. What have been the sticking points for Iran?
Well, some of the sticking points are about, but now it is more technical terms because there are no trust on both sides, not just in Iran, but on both sides. So the sticking points are more of technical issues. And what has to be dealt with beyond these technical issues is, on the one hand, the risk of new sanctions from the United States, and on the other hand, the response of the Iranian deputies that will go from 20% enrichment to 60% enrichment. So we will be back on the brinkmanship. So even though there can be still some sticking point, it is still important for both sides to agree and to move on with the diplomatic track, because both Rouhani and Obama know that if diplomacy fails, both sides would be worse off.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Milad Jokar, they're a political analyst and a Middle East specialist. Now, the French President